The first sound I heard was the kettle clicking off. It was late morning. The house was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that makes you notice every small thing, every breath, every creak of old wood. I was standing in the kitchen, holding a mug, about to pour the tea Vanessa had prepared for me before she and my son left on their cruise. 7 days. That was how long they would be gone. 7 days of me watching my grandson Eli while they relaxed on a luxury ship somewhere in the Caribbean. Vanessa had smiled when she handed me the box of tea packets. "Margaret," she said, "you need to drink this every morning and every night. It will help with your nerves and your sleep." She said it in that gentle voice she always used when she wanted something. I had believed her. I always did. The water was steaming. I lifted the kettle and started to pour. That was when I heard it. "Grandma." The word froze me in place. My hand trembled. The kettle hovered in the air. Eli stood in the doorway. For 8 years, my grandson had never spoken a single word. Doctors said he was nonverbal. Therapists said he might never speak. Vanessa told everyone he lived in his own world. Yet there he was, standing straight, looking at me. "Grandma," he said again, clear and calm, "do not drink that tea." Mom put something in it. The kettle slipped from my hand and clattered into the sink. My heart felt like it stopped beating. Eli walked toward me slowly, his small face serious, in a way no 8-year-old face should ever be. "You have to listen to me, Grandma. She has been putting medicine in your tea. Bad medicine." I grabbed the counter to keep from falling. "You can talk," I whispered. He nodded. I always could. I stared at my grandson, my mind spinning. 8 years of silence, 8 years of believing he could not speak, 8 years of trusting the woman who was now being named as a poisoner by her own child. I looked down at the mug. The tea was darker than usual. Stronger. The smell was wrong. "What did she put in it, Eli?" I asked. "Sleep pills," he said, "and other ones that make you forget things. She crushes them and mixes them in." My stomach twisted. "How long has she been doing this?" I asked. "A long time, Grandma. At least 2 years. She says if you get confused enough, the doctors will think it is just old age." I felt cold from the inside out. My own daughter-in-law, the woman who smiled at me and called me Mom, she had been slowly turning my mind against me. "Why did you never tell me before?" I asked. Eli looked down. "She told me if I ever spoke, she would send me away, and she said something bad would happen to you." I pulled him into my arms. For the first time in years, my grandson spoke, and with those words, everything I thought I knew about my family shattered. Before that moment in the kitchen, I thought I understood my family. I was Margaret Holloway, 68 years old, retired school librarian, widow for nearly a decade. I lived in the same quiet suburban house my husband and I had bought when our son was still in high school. It was not a mansion, but it was paid off. It was mine. And over the years, I had built a modest but comfortable savings. That alone made me valuable to the wrong kind of people. My son Eric was 41, a good man, but a weak one. He hated conflict. He avoided difficult conversations. And ever since he married Vanessa, he had learned how to stay silent when things felt wrong. Vanessa was 36, beautiful, polished, always dressed like she was walking into a meeting even when she was just going to the grocery store. She talked about goals and success and building a future. But what she really loved was control. Control over Eric, control over money, and control over anyone who got in her way. Then there was Eli, my grandson. 8 years old with big brown eyes that seemed to notice everything. Doctors said he was developmentally delayed. Vanessa made sure everyone believed he understood very little. But I had always felt something else behind his quiet. When I visited, he watched people closely, too closely, like he was studying them. I thought he was just observant. Now I knew he was surviving. Vanessa controlled everything in that house. What time Eli went to bed, what he ate, who was allowed to talk to him, even what I was allowed to give him. If I brought him a toy or a book, she would inspect it first. If I tried to spend time alone with him, she always found a reason to be nearby. She liked to say it was because he had special needs. But now I understood. She was afraid of what he might say. Over the last 2 years, Eric and Vanessa had begun talking about me differently. They said I was forgetful, that I was not as sharp as I used to be, that maybe it was not safe for me to live alone anymore. At first I believed them. I had been tired, foggy, confused sometimes. I blame my age. I never imagined that someone was making me that way on purpose. And all this time, the only one who knew was the child they believed could not speak at all. The week Eric and Vanessa left for their cruise was not random. Vanessa had planned it carefully. She told everyone they needed a break, that parenting a special needs child was exhausting, that they deserved something nice. And while they packed swimsuits and sunscreen, she was packing something else for me. Tea, little paper packets neatly stacked in a box on my kitchen counter. "Margaret," she said the morning they left, "I made this special for you. It will help with your nerves and your sleep. Just one in the morning and one at night." Her smile was warm. Her eyes were not. Eric hugged me before they left. "Mom," he said, "are you sure you will be okay with Eli for a whole week?" I told him I had raised him. I could handle one child. Vanessa leaned down and kissed my cheek. "Make sure she drinks all of it," she whispered to Eli, thinking he could not understand. Then they were gone. A luxury car driving away toward a luxury ship, and a house that suddenly felt lighter, quieter, more honest. Until the truth came out. Vanessa had the perfect alibi. Hundreds of people, cameras, receipts, cruise records. If something happened to me while they were gone, it would look like nature had simply done what it always does. That is why the tea was stronger this time. That is why Eli spoke up when he did. She was not waiting anymore. She was trying to finish it. After I dropped the kettle back into the sink, Eli did not move. He stood there watching me, making sure I understood. "Grandma," he said, "you have to pour it out. All of it." I slowly tipped the mug into the sink. The dark liquid disappeared down the drain. My hands were shaking. "Come sit with me," I said. We went to the small table by the window. Eli climbed into the chair across from me, like he had done 1,000 times before, except now he was looking straight at me, not down at his hands. "I need you to tell me everything," I said, "even if it is scary." He took a deep breath. "Mom makes me pretend I cannot talk. When doctors come, when teachers come, when anyone comes, she says if I ever talk, bad things will happen." "What kind of bad things?" I asked. "She said she would send me to a place where kids never come back. And she said you would get very sick if I told anyone." My heart ached. "When did you start talking, Eli?" "I always could," he said quietly. "I just learned not to." He told me how Vanessa would close the bedroom door at night and talk on the phone, how she would crush pills with the back of a spoon and pour the powder into my tea packets, how she would count them, measure them, write things down. "What kinds of pills?" I asked. "Sleep pills. Ones for being calm, some from bottles, some in little plastic bags. Do you know why she was doing it?" Eli nodded. "She says you have money in the house and that Dad will get it when you are gone. And she says he listens to her." My chest tightened. "How long has this been happening?" I asked. "Since I was 6, he said. "That is when you started sleeping more when you came over. 2 years, 2 years of slow poison." "Why did she make you pretend to be different?" I asked. "Because no one listens to kids like me," he said. "She said if something ever went wrong, they would never believe me. The truth was brutal and simple. Vanessa had turned her own child into a shield, a silent witness no one would take seriously. And for 2 years, it had worked. Once Eli began talking, the story came out in pieces, small details at first, then bigger ones. Every time I visited their house, Vanessa insisted I drink tea. Every time I said I was tired, she smiled and said it was my age. When I forgot a word or repeated a story, she told Eric I was getting worse. She was building a story about me long before she tried to end it. Eli told me she kept a notebook. She wrote down how I acted after I drank the tea. If I was slow, if I was confused, if I forgot things. She would say things like, "That one worked well," or "maybe more next time." I felt sick hearing it. This was not care, it was testing. Vanessa was not trying to help me. She was trying to find the right amount of medicine to make me disappear quietly. And she was doing it in a way that looked natural. Doctors expect older people to slow down. They expect memory problems. They expect sleep issues. That was her shield. I thought about the last 2 years. The afternoons I could not keep my eyes open. The times I forgot where I parked. The mornings I woke up feeling like my head was full of cotton. I had blamed myself. I had apologized. I had started to believe I was losing my mind. And all along, someone was putting it there. Eli said sometimes Vanessa talked about money, about how much nursing homes cost, about how long people live, about how much longer she was willing to wait. I asked him what she meant by that. He looked down. She said if you did not go soon, she would have to help it happen. That was when I knew. This was not neglect. This was a plan, a slow plan, and now, a fast one. That afternoon, Eli showed me something I will never forget. He led me into the guest bedroom, where he stayed when he visited. Under his bed, taped to the wooden frame, was a thin folder. "Mom hides things here," he said. "She thinks I only look at my toys." Inside were papers Vanessa had printed, articles about memory loss, about elderly confusion, about how doctors decide when someone is no longer capable of living alone. Some pages were highlighted. Some had notes written in neat handwriting. Expected decline. Normal aging. Loss of judgment. Then there were pages about medications. How certain drugs affect older people. How mixing them can make someone sleepy, forgetful, slow. There were numbers in the margins. Times. Dosages. One page had a sentence underlined 3 times. Accidental overdose in elderly patients often goes unnoticed. I sat on the bed, holding those pages, feeling like the air had been pulled from the room. This was not fear. This was planning. Eli pointed to one sheet. She wrote this the night before they left. It was a list. My name at the top. Dates. Short notes. More tired. More confused. Increase next dose. The last line made my hands shake. Cruise week final increase, she had decided. This was when she wanted me gone. Not someday. Not eventually. Now. And the only reason I was still alive was because an 8-year-old boy found the courage to break 8 years of silence. Once I saw those papers, I knew one thing for sure. We could not just confront Vanessa. We needed proof. Real proof. The kind no one could explain away. That night, after Eli went to bed, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to my doctor. I told her I had been feeling foggy and unwell for a long time. I asked if medicine could cause symptoms that look like memory loss. She said yes. I asked if blood tests could show what was in my system. She said yes again. The second call was to my lawyer. I asked her what kind of evidence was needed to prove someone was harming an elderly person. She said medical records, documents, and recordings. That was when the idea came to me. If Vanessa believed her plan was working, she would talk. People always talk when they think they have won. I bought a small recorder the next morning. Eli and I practiced. When other people were around, he would go back to being silent. When we were alone, we planned. We would let Vanessa think the tea was doing its job. We would let her feel safe, and when she came back, we would let her say everything she believed. That was our trap, and it was the only way to stop her. Vanessa called on the second night of the cruise. Eli told me she always did. I put the phone on speaker so he could hear. "Margaret," she said, "are you doing okay over there?" I made my voice slow, a little weak. "I think so, dear. I have been very tired." "Have you been drinking the tea?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Just like you told me, it tastes stronger than usual." "That is good," she said. "Stronger means it is working." I pretended to be confused. "Working for what, dear?" "For your sleep and your nerves," she said quickly. "You have been so anxious lately." I paused. "Sometimes I forget things," I told her. Yesterday I could not remember what day it was. There was a small silence on the line. Then her voice softened in a way that made my skin crawl. "Oh, Margaret, that happens when people get older. You should rest more." Eli was watching me closely. "I feel dizzy sometimes," I added. "That is normal," she said. "Just do not go anywhere. It is better to stay home and relax." That was the moment I knew. She did not want me to go to a doctor. She did not want me to leave the house. She wanted me right where I was, safe, quiet, and slowly disappearing. "You are doing great, Margaret," she said. "We will take care of everything when we get back." After she hung up, Eli whispered, "She is happy." I nodded. "Yes." And that meant she was walking straight into our trap. The next morning, I went to see my doctor. I did not tell Eric or Vanessa. I told Eli to wait for me in the living room and pretend to play. The blood tests were quick. The waiting was not. By the afternoon, my phone rang. "Margaret," my doctor said, "your results are not normal. There are several medications in your system that you are not prescribed. Sleep aids, anxiety drugs, in levels that can cause confusion, memory loss, and dangerous side effects." My hands tightened around the phone. "Could they have killed me?" I asked. "Yes," she said quietly. "If the doses increased, it could have stopped your breathing." When I hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. Then I called my lawyer. Then I called the police. Not to make a report yet, but to ask what I should do when the person came back. They told me to stay calm, to gather everything, to call when she arrived. When I told Eli what the doctor said, he nodded. "I told you," he said softly. "We were not guessing anymore. We were surviving? 3 days later, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway made my heart race. Eric and Vanessa were back. I sat in my living room chair, slouched slightly, letting my hair fall loose around my face. Eli sat on the floor with his toys, silent and still, just like he had been trained to be. The front door opened. "Margaret," Vanessa called out, "we are home." She walked in first, tanned, relaxed, smiling, until she saw me. "Oh my goodness," she said. "You look terrible." I lifted my eyes slowly. "I feel strange," I said. "Very tired." She came closer. "Have you been drinking the tea?" she asked. "Every day," I said. "Morning and night." "Good," she said softly. "Very good." Eric stood behind her, uneasy. "Mom," he asked, "are you okay?" "I forget things," I told him. "Sometimes I do not know where I am." Vanessa took his arm. "See," she said. "I told you she was getting worse. Maybe it is time we think about professional care." I pretended not to understand. "Care for what, dear?" "A place where they help people who cannot live alone anymore," she said gently. "A nursing home, where no one would notice if my tea kept working, where I would not be able to stop her." "I do not want to be a burden," I said. Vanessa smiled. "We will take care of everything." That was when I knew. She believed she had already won. I reached for Eli. "Sweetheart," I said, "can you bring Grandma some water?" He stood up slowly. Vanessa watched him. The recorder was hidden on the bookshelf behind him. Eli walked over. He picked it up. "What is he doing?" Vanessa asked. Eli turned around. "It is a recorder," he said clearly. Vanessa froze. Eric stared. Eli kept going. "I have been recording Mom talking about the medicine she puts in Grandma tea." Vanessa stepped back. "That is not funny," she said. "He cannot talk." "I can talk," Eli said. "I always could. You just made me afraid." Eric dropped into a chair. "Eli," he whispered, "you can speak." "Yes, Dad. Mom told me if I ever spoke, she would send me away and hurt Grandma." Vanessa shook her head. "He is lying." I stood up. "No," I said. "He is telling the truth." I pulled out the folder. "Your notes, your plans, your doses." Vanessa's eyes went wide. "That means nothing." I opened one page. "Cruise week final increase." "What does that mean, Vanessa?" Eric looked sick. "You were trying to kill her," he said. Vanessa's mouth opened, then closed. "You do not understand," she said. "She was in the way. That was enough." I picked up the phone. "The police are on their way," I said. Vanessa tried to move toward Eli. I stepped in front of him. "You will not touch him again." The sound of sirens filled the air before Vanessa could say another word. She looked around the room as if she might find a way out. There was none. 2 officers came through the door. I handed them the folder, the recorder, the medical report from my doctor. "This woman has been poisoning me," I said, "and she has been forcing her child to stay silent to hide it." Vanessa tried to speak. They did not let her. Eric sat with his head in his hands. Eli stood beside me. For the first time in his life, he was not hiding. Vanessa was taken away, in handcuffs, still shouting that no one would believe a confused old woman and a broken child. But this time she was wrong. The truth was louder than she ever was. The weeks that followed felt unreal. Doctors confirmed the damage to my body. Therapists confirmed the damage to Eli's mind. Vanessa was charged with attempted murder, elder abuse, and child abuse. Eric broke down. He said he had seen signs but had been too afraid to face them. The court placed Eli with me, not temporarily, permanently. For the first time, my grandson was safe, and for the first time, he was allowed to be heard. Eli began speaking more every day, at first softly, then freely. He started school, he started therapy, he started laughing. The quiet, scared child disappeared little by little. My own mind came back as the drugs left my system. I remembered things again. I felt like myself again. We baked cookies, we read books, we talked. Things that had once been impossible were suddenly normal. And every normal moment felt like a victory. Sometimes revenge is not about hurting someone back. Sometimes it is about surviving them. Vanessa thought silence made her powerful. But silence is fragile. Truth always finds a way out. Eli lost 8 years of his childhood to fear. I nearly lost my life to deception, but together we stopped it. If this story moved you, tell me where you are watching from. And ask yourself one question: what would you have done in my place? Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and remember, your voice matters.